Alright guys, welcome to the first video for Algebra 1. This is going to be lesson 95. I would love to joke around and tell you all about, making you laugh and whatnot. But unfortunately we have a very tough lesson to go through, and I'm a little bit worried. Not that I won't have time, but that I thought this videos were going to be shorter. So this is going to take a little bit longer than the other two that I've already done. So let's get to it. All right, so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be adding this rational expressions. So the first thing that we do have to know how to do is find the least common denominator. So right now we're not going to be worrying about the numerator, we're going to be worrying about the denominator. So to be able to find the denominator, we first have to factor out x squared minus 2x minus 15. And so I told you that you have to become really good at factoring. 15 is going to be 3 and 5 because it's negative. It's going to be minus 5 because this is negative 2 plus 3. So it's going to be x minus 5, x plus 3. And so this one is x plus 3. So my least common denominator for my first example is going to be x plus 3 because it's common in both times x minus 5. And that would be how you solve the least common denominator in the first. For the second part of the first example, now we have to worry about this one right here. I know that there might be glare somewhere. I'm sorry about that. I'm just working with what I have right now. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to factor out 4 because 196 is actually divisible by 4. And so I'm going to take the 4 out. And I'm sorry I don't have my calculator because I just don't have it. I'm working on getting one. Hopefully I could order one soon enough. So it's going to be 49. Right? So the first part is going to be, I took the 4 out, so it's going to be x squared minus 49. Hopefully by now you have a trained eye and you know that x squared minus 49 is going to be the difference of squares. And so it's going to be 4x plus 7, x minus 7. That is going to be the factorization of the first denominator. Now in my second denominator I have x squared plus x minus 56. 56 is going to be 7 and 8. 7 times 8 is 56. And so because it's positive, it's going to be x plus 8, x minus 7. Right? And so this is my second denominator. Hopefully I'm covering the glare. I'm trying to cover the glare so you can see. It's going to be x plus 8 and x minus 7. So I have 4, x plus 7, x minus 7. And so my least common denominator for this one is going to be 4, x plus 7, x minus 7, x plus 8. This is my least common denominator. And this is what I'm telling you. This is going to be a little bit harder because if we actually had to add this, it would be a whole nother issue. But praise the Lord, we only have to do this part right here for this example. All right, as you can see, I had to do some modifications to see if I could help with the glare because it's really important that you guys could see what I'm doing here. So in here I have x squared minus 16, again, difference of squares. So the difference of square means that the LCD, that's the first step. First step when we have to add or subtract rational expression is find the least common denominator. So in here, x squared minus 16, it's going to be part of the LCD. You'll see it's going to be x plus 4, x minus 4. And in here, 2x minus 8, if we actually factor out the 2, it's going to be 2x minus 4. Right? So that's where it has here. So 2x minus 4, and this is x plus 4, x minus 4 from this one right here. So the only thing that we have to add to the LCD is put a 2. So it's very important. The least common denominator is going to be 2x plus 4, x minus 4. X plus 4, x minus 4 is going to be x squared minus 16. So what we have to do is we have to multiply all this first term by 2 over 2, because it's 1, right? 2 over 2 is 1. And when we multiply by 1, we don't really change anything. So it's 2 times 2 multiplied times 6x squared over x squared minus 16 plus x minus 1, 2x minus 8. Because it's 2x minus 4, we have to multiply the whole thing by x plus 4 over x times 4. X plus 4, I mean. So x plus 4 over x plus 4. You have to multiply the whole thing. And so in here, 2 times 6x squared is going to be 12x squared. And in here, we're just going to leave it as 2x plus 4, x minus 4. It just so that we know that at the end, because we're adding a fraction, the denominator, we're not really going to do much to it. And so we're going to add here times x minus 1, x plus 4 over 2 x minus 4, x plus 4. I know that the order of the denominator is not the same, but it's still pretty much, it is not the same, but it is the same, because the order of the products, the order of the factors, sorry, doesn't alter the product. All right, so now that we have all this, we're going to write our new denominator, which is going to be common in between these two, and it doesn't really matter. That way we're done with it. It's going to be x plus 4, x minus 4. Boom, we're done with it. And then in here, we're going to have 12x squared plus, and then we are going to have to do FOIL here, which is one of the reasons I told you that you have to be really good at FOIL. And I keep stressing these things because they're true. So it's going to be x squared minus 3x minus 4. So it's going to be 12x squared plus x squared minus 3x minus 4. And so in here, then we're going to have 2x plus 4, x minus 4. We're going to combine this, and so it's going to be 13x squared, because 12x squared plus x squared is 13x squared, minus 3x minus 4, all over 2 times x plus 4, x minus 4. And you could just leave it like that, because I know this is going to be a prime number, and it would just be that. Actually, before we move on, quick correction. I totally forgot that this is positive and this is negative. It's going to be x plus 3, x minus 4. And so the answer would be 13x squared plus 3x minus 4 over 2x plus 4, x minus 4. That would be the second example. All right, in example 3, we're going to do the same thing that we did in example 2, except we're going to subtract. So to be able to subtract, because we have different denominators in these rational expressions, we need to find the least common denominator. So the least common denominator is going to be, we have to find out. Again, this is a difference of squares, and so it's going to be x plus 3, x minus 3. And again, it doesn't matter which one you put first. You could put the x minus 3 first, the x plus 3 second. It doesn't really matter, because the order of the factors doesn't alter the product. In here, though, we're going to factor out the 9, and so it's going to be x minus 3. And so my LCD, my least common denominator, is going to be 9x minus 3, x plus 3. Okay, so for the first term here, we have to multiply by x plus 3 over x plus 3, which is 1. And so that means that I'm really not changing it. I'm just changing the denominator so that I can actually subtract them. So this is really important to do. So the first thing that we're going to do, and I know I might be covering the camera for a little bit, but let me just write it down and then we'll get into it. It's going to be multiply this by x plus 3 over x plus 3. And this is going to be 4x squared, and then 9x minus 3. All right, so this is the first term, x plus 3 over x plus 3 times 4x squared over 9x minus 3. It's the same thing here, except I factor out the denominator, and then I multiply it by x plus 3 over x plus 3. And then minus, and then in here, 2x minus 5, x squared minus 9, which is the same thing as x plus 3, x minus 3. We're going to multiply that by 9 over 9. And so it's going to be 2x minus 5, x plus 3, x minus 3 times 9 over 9. So that's what is going to be there. And the next step will be have a denominator here of 9, x plus 3, x minus 3, denominator of this one, of this term right here, this rational term. And then we're going to multiply 4x squared times x plus 3. And then in here, we're going to have the same denominator, x plus 3, x minus 3. And then we're going to multiply 9 times 2x minus 5. Okay? So moving right along, we are going to combine the denominators because it's the same, and it's going to stay the same. 9x plus 3, x minus 3. And then we're going to multiply 4x squared times x plus 3. So we have to do the distributive property. And 4x squared times x is going to be 4x cubed. And 4x squared times positive 3 is going to be plus 12x squared. And then we're going to have 9 times 2x. Again, distributive property on this side as well. 9 times 2x is going to be, watch out though, it's going to be negative 9 times 2x. So you have to keep this negative in your mind, and you can't just forget it. So negative 9 times 2x is going to be negative 18x, and then negative 9 times negative 5 is going to be plus 45. Now we are going to try to combine that, but we can't really combine it. And there is something that, nope, that's pretty much it, I think. Yeah, because 45 is 5 and 9. 4 is 4, 2 and 2, 12 is 4 and 3, and this is 18, it's 3 and 6, but because this one is 5, and this one is not divisible by 2, this one is divisible by 2, this one is, but none of these are divisible by 2. This one is not divisible by 3, but this 3 are divisible by 3, but then we can't do anything because we cannot combine them. This is 4x cubed, this is 12x squared, this is 18x, and this is 45, so that would be the answer. Moving right along to example 4a, we have negative 35 over 56 minus 7x plus negative 6x minus 2 over x squared minus 6x minus 16. So in here what we have in common is that these both can be divided by 7. So if we divide this by 7, this is going to be 8 minus x. And then in here we can obviously also factor out 16. You can get it from 4 and 4, or 8 and 2, which is what we're going to use, 8 and 2, because negative 8 plus 2 is going to be negative 6x, and negative 8 times positive 2. Negative and positive will give you negative 16, so it's going to be 8x minus 8 and x plus 2. Okay, so if we look here, we have a little bit of a problem because in here is 8 minus x, and in here is x minus 8. So in one it's 8 minus x, and the other one is x minus 8. So again, what we're going to do then is we're going to factor out a negative 1. So it's going to be negative 7, because 7 times negative 1 is negative 7. So it's going to be negative 7. And then in here is going to be x minus 8. And then in here it's going to be x minus 8, x plus 2. So my least common denominator becomes negative 7, x minus 8, x plus 2. This is really important because of what we did right here. So now that we understand that this term right here is the same thing, 7 times 8 minus x is the same thing as negative 7 times x minus 8, we have to then find, well, we have to multiply this rational term by to get this denominator in here. So this denominator is going to be given by multiplying this negative 7 times x minus 8 times x plus 2. So what we're going to do is we're going to multiply that by x plus 2 over x plus 2, because x plus 2 times x plus over x plus 2 is going to be 1. And so it's going to be negative 35 over negative 7, x minus 8. Plus, we are adding in this particular example, it's going to be plus negative 6x minus 2 over negative 7. No, not negative 7 yet, but x minus 8, x plus 2 times negative 7 over negative 7. And that's what we have right there. Okay, so what I wrote here is I basically just multiplied the 1, x plus 2 over x plus 2 times negative 35 over negative 7 times x minus 8. So it's going to be negative 35 times x plus 2 over negative 7 times x minus 8, x plus 2. In this side, I did the same thing. I did negative 7 times negative 6x minus 2, and then I multiplied negative 7 times 8x times x minus 8, x plus 2. So that's what it would look like, but you have to distribute. You can't forget that. Now, your book is actually not showing you what this step, from this step, they go into a very short one. So I'm actually going to go, and there's like a middle step in between, maybe 1 or 2 middle steps. So that's what I'm going to do right now. So it's going to be negative 35x minus 70 plus, I'm going to put it in parentheses here so it's a little bit easier, negative 50, negative 7 and negative 6 is going to be positive 56x. Okay, very important. Not 56, my bad. 42. And that's what happens when you're tired. 42x and negative 7 times negative 2 is positive 14. So what happens is that we left the positive here. This is the positive from this problem. And then my denominator is negative 7, x minus 8, x plus 2. Okay, so far so good. So now we're going to combine like terms. Negative 35x plus 42x is going to be 42 minus 35. 42 minus 35 is going to be 7x, positive 7x. And then negative 70 plus 14, it's going to be negative 56. So now this is what your book has. So this one right here, they didn't really show you, or the combination between 42x minus 35x and negative 70 plus 14. So that's what it would give you in the numerator. In the denominator is still negative 7x. Negative 7, sorry, x minus 8, x plus 2, right? And so in here, we can actually, again, factorize the 7 out of the numerator. And so the numerator would become 7x minus 8 over negative 7, x minus 8, x plus 2. Plus 2, sorry, not minus 2. So that's what we have there so far. So now what we're going to do is pay close attention, we're going to cancel out the x minus 8 and the x minus 8 and the 7 and the 7, but not the negative. The negative is going to stay there. So what happens in the numerator? The numerator is going to become, because 7 divided by 7 is 1, and x minus 8 divided by x minus 8 is 1, is going to become 1. And so the answer is going to be negative 1 over x plus 2. That's what it's going to be. The answer is negative 1 over x plus 2. All right, finally, for the last example of this lesson, well, not the final example, actually, there's example 5, but for the last example I'm going to go over, which is 4b. And so, again, this is a subtraction with different denominators in the rational expression, so we have to find the least common denominator. Again, the first thing to do always is to factor it out. So a 2 can actually be taken out of here, so it's going to be 2. X minus 3, and in here you can actually take out a 4, so it's going to be 4 x minus 3, and so in here it's actually a little bit easier because 2 is a factor of 4. So what we need to understand is that the least common denominator here is going to be 4 x minus 3. That's it. That's all we need to know. It's going to be 4x minus 3. Why? Because if we multiply this by 2, we get to 4 times x minus 3. So that's what we're going to do. And that makes it a lot simpler for this one. Because in here, I don't have to multiply by anything. It's already there. In here, I have to multiply by 2 over 2. And so it's going to be x minus 5 and 2x minus 6 minus x minus 7 over 4x minus 3. Okay? Maybe what I should do here is also make this into 2x minus 3. So that way we don't get confused and we understand that the common denominator is 4 times x minus 3. Okay? So now what we're going to do is obviously distribute this 2. And the denominator then becomes common. I'm going to do it up here. And it's going to be 4x minus 3 because 2 times 2 is 4. So it is that. And then 2 times x is going to be 2x. And 2 times negative 5 is going to be minus 10. And then minus x minus 7. So I put it into the parentheses because we can't forget to distribute the negative, right? So if you want, you can do that so that it's actually easier for you to recognize. And so it's going to be 2x minus 10. And now I'm going to distribute the negative minus x plus 7. And so 2x minus x, over 4 x minus 3. Can't forget that denominator. It's there for a reason. So we have a 2x minus x is going to be x. And negative 10 plus 7 is going to be minus 3. Oh, I think you, or some of you, have seen what's going to happen here because 2x minus x is x and negative 10 plus 7 is going to be negative 3. And so we're going to cancel this out. The answer is a simple 1/4. And from there, we get to 1/4. And that would be it for lesson 95.